Welcome to Where the Sky Meets the Sea. I'm host 1. Today we will be talking about Korean Air Flight 007. Let's get down to business. In the early hours of September 1st, 1983, a routine commercial flight from New York to Seoul via Anchorage, Alaska, vanished from radar screens over the North Pacific Ocean. The plane, as said before, Korean Airlines Flight 007, was a Boeing 747 carrying 269 people, including passengers and crew. What unfolded over the next few days wasn't a mechanical failure, but one of the most shocking and defining moments of the Cold War. It was an incident that pushed the United States and the Soviet Union to the brink, exposing deep paranoia and astonishing series of errors on both sides. Today, we explore how navigational mistake led to a civilian massacre, and the decades-long cover-up that followed. The year, 1983. Tensions between the U.S. and Soviet Union are at a fever pitch. President Reagan has called the USSR the evil empire, and the Soviets are convinced the U.S. is planning a first strike. In this highly charged atmosphere, an American spy plane in RC-135 is conducting a routine surveillance mission near Soviet airspace over the Kamchatka Peninsula. At the same time, Korean Airlines Flight 007 is beginning the second leg of its journey over Anchorage to Seoul. On board, 246 passengers and 23 crew members, among them a U.S. Congressman, Larry McDonald, on his way to South Korea to commemorate a defense treaty. What the crew of Korean Airlines Flight 7, led by Captain Chung Byung-in, didn't realize was that shortly after takeoff, their aircraft wasn't following its assigned route, R20, due to an uncorrected autopilot error. The 747 was slowly but surely drifting off course, heading straight into some of the most sensitive, restricted Soviet military airspace in the world. The flight path for Korean Airlines Flight 007 was supposed to be wide arc across the Pacific Ocean, keeping it far from Soviet territory. But the plane flew a straighter, more northern path, crossing the Kamchatka Peninsula and then heading toward Sakhalin Island. Soviet radar operators detected an intrusion. In their highly paranoid state with an American spy plane in general vicinity, they quickly concluded it was an enemy intelligence operation. They scrambled Sukhoi Su-15 interceptor jets. Major Gennady Ospevich was the pilot tasked with the interception. For over 2 hours, the pilots tracked the airliner, but a series of miscommunication and technical limitations prevented a proper identification. Major Gennady Ospevich was the pilot tasked with the interception. For over 2 hours, the Soviets tracked the airliner, but a series of miscommunications and technical limitations prevented a proper identification. The Soviet fighter plane attempted to make contact, but the radio frequencies weren't compatible with civilian aircraft. Ospevich reported seeing the target's navigation lights, a clear sign of a civilian airliner, but ground control dismissed this information, convinced it was a spy plane, designed to look like a commercial jet. The Soviet chain of command wasn't interested in the identification. They were more interested in elimination. The plane was about to exit Soviet airspace over the Sea of Japan, and the commander on the ground was desperate to stop it. The cockpit voice recordings, which we'll hear about later, reveal a terrifying urgency from the ground controller. Quote, "Launch," end quote. Major Ospevich, following orders, fired 2 air-to-air missiles at point-blank range. He couldn't have missed. One missile destroyed an engine, and another detonated near the rear of the plane. In the cockpit, the crew of Korean Airlines Flight 007 suddenly experienced a rapid decompression and lost control. The cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder both stopped shortly after, but not before the recording the calm, professional, yet urgent voice of the flight attendant repeating over the interphone, quote, "Urgent descent. Fasten seatbelts. Put on masks." End quote. The aircraft didn't break up immediately, as initially believed. Instead, it continued to fly for several minutes, plunging into pieces towards the Sea of Japan. All 269 people aboard perished. There were no survivals. The world woke up on September 1st, 1983, to the shocking news. The United States government immediately went public, revealing surveillance data that confirmed the shoot-down and the Soviet cover-up. President Reagan, in an address to the nation, called the act one of the, quote, inhuman brutality, end quote, and a, quote, massacre, end quote. The Soviets, for their part, initially denied any involvement before admitting they shot it down, but insisting it was a justified action against a U.S. spy plane. The propaganda war was still in full swing, and the U.S.-Soviet relations degraded even further. The Cold War got colder. The search for the wreckage and the crucial black boxes began immediately. It was an international effort, but the Soviets actively interfered with the search and rescue operations. Unknown to the rest of the world, the Soviets actually found the flight invoice data recorders first. For nearly a decade, they denied having it, but when conspiracy theories pressure them. Some theories suggest that the plane made a safer water landing and the passengers were taken to Soviet camps. Others claim that it was targeted assassination of Congressman McDonald. The truth was far more mundane. A tragic combination of human error and Cold War paranoia. In 1993, after the fall of the Soviet Union, Russian President Boris Yeltsin released the black boxes to the International Civil Aviation Organization, or ICAO, which conducted a new investigation. The transcripts for those recorders were shocking. They revealed no indication that the Korean airline crew knew they were in Soviet airspace. They were providing position reports to Japanese air traffic control that they were completely wrong. The final report by ICAO concluding that the primary cause was a catastrophic pilot error. Specifically, the crew likely failed to properly set autopilot to navigate the designed route after takeoff from Anchorage. The plane simply maintained a constant magnetic heading, which naturally drifted it northward into Soviet airspace. The secondary cause was the Soviet military's failure to identify the civilian aircraft and their determination to destroy it without a clear international recognizing warning. The tragedy of Korean Airlines Flight 007 had a lasting impact, one of the most significant outcomes as a direct result of the navigational error. President Reagan announced that the Global Positioning System, or GPS, was a top-secret military technology at the time, would be available for civilian use to prevent such navigational mistake from ever happening again. The incident remains a dark moment in aviation history and a powerful reminder of how geopolitical tensions can have devastating real-world consequences for innocent civilians. Families of the victims endured immense pain and a difficult search for the truth. For them, no amount of money or explanation could bring back their loved ones. The story of Korean Airlines Flight 007 was a cautionary tale of miscommunication, paranoia, and the human cost of war. Thank you for listening to Where the Sky Meets the Sea. Rest in peace to all victims of Korean Airlines Flight 007.